My mom sold my house while I was on vacation to pay off my sister's $214,000 debts. When I came back, they mocked me. Now you're homeless. I just smiled. What's so funny? They snapped, irritated. I just replied, the house they sold was actually. I never thought my 2-week vacation to Bali would end with me returning to find my entire life sold off like a yard sale item. But here I am, standing in my mother's living room, listening to her explain how she forged my signature and sold my house to pay off my sister's gambling debts. My name is Bonnie Hayes, and I'm a 34-year-old financial analyst who spent the last decade building a comfortable life for myself. The house in question was a beautiful 3-bedroom craftsman in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood, purchased 5 years ago when the market was more forgiving. Every mortgage payment came from my own earnings. Every renovation was funded by my bonuses. That house represented every sacrifice I'd made, every weekend I'd worked overtime, every vacation I'd postponed to save money. My sister Bethany is 3 years younger than me and has never held a job for longer than 8 months. She's beautiful, charming, and utterly irresponsible. Our mother has always treated her like fragile porcelain while treating me like a workhorse. Growing up, I was the one who got a part-time job at 15 to pay for my own school supplies. Bethany got an allowance until she was 23. The vacation to Bali was supposed to be my reward for finally paying off my student loans. My boyfriend Ryan and I had planned it for months. We stayed at a small resort in Ubud, went snorkeling, explored temples, and for the first time in years, I felt genuinely relaxed. I'd left my house keys with Mom, asking her to water my plants and collect my mail, a simple favor that any reasonable parent would handle without incident. I should have known better. Ryan and I landed at PDX on a Thursday evening, jet-lagged and sunburned, but happy. I texted Mom to let her know I was back and would pick up my keys the next morning. Her response was strange. Come over tomorrow at noon. We need to talk. No emoji, no warmth, just those clinical words that made my stomach twist. The next day I drove to my childhood home in Beaverton. Mom's car was in the driveway along with Bethy's beat-up Honda that she'd somehow managed not to total yet. My younger brother Christopher's truck was there too, which was unusual since he typically avoided family gatherings. Something was wrong. Mom opened the door before I could knock. Her face was set in that expression I knew too well, the one that said she'd already decided I was being unreasonable before I'd even spoken. Bethany sat on the couch looking surprisingly smug for someone who apparently needed help. Christopher stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Bonnie, sit down, Mom said, gesturing to the armchair. I'd rather stand, I replied, feeling defensive already. What's going on? Mom exchanged a look with Bethany and my sister actually smirked. That's when the first spike of genuine fear hit me. Your sister was in some trouble. Mom began using that same gentle voice she'd always used when explaining why Bethany got away with crashing my car or stealing money from my wallet. She owed some very dangerous people a lot of money. How much money, I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. $214,000, Bethany said without a trace of shame. Give or take a few hundred. I actually laughed. The sound came out harsh and disbelieving. You owe someone over $200,000. How is that even possible? Bethany shrugged. Online poker, some sports betting, a few bad investments. Things got out of hand. Things got out of hand, I repeated, my voice rising. Bethany, that's not things getting out of hand. That's a complete catastrophe. That's years of terrible decisions compounding into a financial nightmare. Don't use that tone with your sister, Mom snapped. She came to me for help like family should, unlike you, who's always been so independent and cold. The accusation stung mostly because I'd heard it my entire life. My independence wasn't a choice. It was a necessity born from watching my sister get bailed out of every consequence while I was expected to handle everything myself. Okay, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice level. So Bethany has these debts. What does this have to do with me? I'm assuming you didn't invite me over just to tell me about her problems. Mom's jaw tightened. I helped her. I paid off the debts. With what money? I asked, genuinely confused. Mom lived on a fixed income from Dad's life insurance and her small pension. She didn't have $200,000. The silence that followed was deafening. Christopher finally spoke from his position by the fireplace. Bonnie, you might want to sit down for this. I'm fine standing, I said, but my legs felt weak. Someone tell me what's happening. I sold your house, Mom said simply, as if she'd just told me she'd donated an old coat to Goodwill. For a moment, I couldn't process the words. They didn't make sense arranged in that order. You what? I sold your house. The buyer was very motivated, and we closed quickly. The money went to pay Bethy's debts and cover the early payoff penalties. My vision actually blurred at the edges. You can't sell my house. It's my house. My name is on the deed. I'm on the deed too, Mom said calmly. Remember when you bought it, I co-signed because your credit score wasn't quite high enough for the loan you wanted. That gave me the legal right to sell. The memory came flooding back. 5 years ago, I'd been so desperate to buy that house before someone else snatched it up. My credit score was 680, just 10 points below what I needed for the best rate. Mom had offered to co-sign, and I'd been so grateful. She'd seemed proud of me that day, genuinely happy about my success. Co-signing doesn't give you the right to sell without my permission, I said, my voice shaking. That's fraud. That's forgery. I never agreed to this. Bethany laughed, actually laughed. God, you're always so dramatic. Mom helped me out of a bad situation. You should be thanking her for keeping your sister safe. Thanking her, I turned to Bethany, rage finally overriding my shock. You want me to thank her for selling my house without my permission to cover your gambling debts? Are you completely insane? Watch your mouth, Mom warned. Bethy's problems were serious. Those people were threatening her. What was I supposed to do? Let them hurt my daughter. She's not your only daughter. The words exploded out of me. I'm your daughter too. That house was everything I'd worked for. Every single thing I owned was in that house. Where exactly am I supposed to live now? You're being selfish, Bethany said, examining her nails with exaggerated boredom. It's just a house. You can buy another one. I could have been killed then. Maybe you should have thought about that before you gambled away $200,000, I was shouting now, past caring about composure. Maybe you should have gotten a job, or gone to therapy, or done literally anything other than destroy your life, and apparently mine along with it. The sale is final, Mom said firmly. The deed is transferred. The new owners take possession at the end of the month. You have 3 weeks to remove your belongings. 3 weeks I've been gone for 2 weeks, and in that time my entire life has been dismantled. I'm suing you, I said quietly. Both of you. This is fraud, and I'm going to fight it. Mom's expression hardened. You can try, but I have a lawyer who says the sale was legal. I was a co-owner. I had the right to sell my share, and your signature on the closing documents looks perfectly legitimate. You forged my signature. I did what I had to do to protect my daughter. I'm your daughter too, I repeated, hating how my voice cracked. Doesn't that matter at all? You've always been fine, Mom said dismissively. You're tough. You'll figure something out. You always do. Bethany stood up, stretching like she'd just woken from a nap. Well, this was fun, but I have plans. Thanks again, Mom. You really saved my life. She walked past me toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Bonnie, you should see your face right now. You look so pathetic. Welcome to homelessness. She laughed as she left, and the sound echoed in my ears long after the door closed behind her. Christopher approached me cautiously. Bonnie. I'm sorry. I only found out yesterday. I tried to call you, but you were on a plane. Did you know this was happening? I asked, my voice hollow. Not until it was done, I swear. I looked at my mother, this woman who'd raised me, who I'd loved despite everything, and felt something fundamental break inside my chest. You're going to regret this. Are you threatening me? Mom's eyebrows rose. Because that's not going to help your case. I'm not threatening you. I'm making a promise. I walked out without another word. Ryan was waiting in the car. He took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. What happened? I told him everything, my voice surprisingly steady. By the time I finished, his face was pale with anger. We're calling a lawyer right now, he said. This can't be legal. But it was legal technically. 3 different attorneys told me the same thing over the next week. Because Mom was on the deed and had forged my signature convincingly enough that the title company hadn't questioned it, the sale was binding. I could sue for damages, they said, but overturning the sale itself would be nearly impossible, especially since the new owners had already secured financing and paid in good faith. The house sold for $487,000. After paying off Bethy's debts, covering the mortgage payoff, and paying various fees, there should have been about $190,000 left. Mom claimed the money went to handling the situation and refused to provide any accounting. My lawyer said proving she'd kept the money would be difficult and expensive. I moved my belongings into a storage unit and crashed on Ryan's couch. My perfect life had been packed into cardboard boxes in 3 weeks. Every item I loaded into that unit felt like a small death. Bethany posted on social media about her fresh start and overcoming adversity. Mom commented with heart emojis. I blocked them both. Christopher met me for coffee 2 weeks after the sale finalized. He looked tired. Mom's bragging about it, he said quietly. She told Aunt Rebecca that she'd finally gotten you to understand that family comes first. She thinks she taught you a lesson. What lesson? I asked bitterly. That I can't trust my own mother. That working hard and following the rules means nothing. That Bethany can destroy her life and mine without consequences. I think she actually believes she did the right thing, Christopher said. In her mind, she saved Bethy's life, and you're successful enough to bounce back. She doesn't see what she did wrong. She stole my house to pay for Bethy's gambling addiction. How is that not wrong? I'm not defending her, Christopher said quickly. I'm just telling you how she sees it. She's telling people you're being dramatic and ungrateful. Ungrateful, I repeated, tasting the word like poison. That night, I pulled out every document related to the house sale. I studied them obsessively, looking for something, anything that could help. The forged signature was too good. The deed transfer was properly executed. The closing documents were filed correctly. But something nagged at me about the whole situation. Mom had moved impossibly fast, finding a buyer, closing the sale, transferring the money to pay Bethy's debts all within 2 weeks. That took planning. That took preparation. I started digging. First, I called the title company and asked for the full transaction records, claiming I needed them for my taxes. They sent everything over, probably feeling sympathetic about my situation, since they'd heard through the grapevine about the family drama. The listing agreement was dated 3 weeks before I'd left for Bali. Mom had started selling my house before I'd even boarded the plane. I sat in Ryan's apartment, staring at that date, and felt everything click into place. This wasn't a panicked decision made to save Bethany. This was premeditated. Mom had planned this, had worked with a real estate agent to list the property and find a buyer, all while I was sending her cheerful texts about my vacation plans. The buyers were a couple from California relocating to Portland for work. They paid cash, which explained the quick close. Their names were Todd and Jennifer Morrison. According to social media, they had 2 kids and were excited about their dream home in Portland. I felt sick looking at their happy family photos taken in front of my house. They were innocent in all this. They'd bought a house, legitimately, had no idea about the fraud behind the sale. Going after them legally would hurt people who had done nothing wrong. But the real estate agent who'd listed the property, that was different. Her name was Patricia Goldman, and she'd been working with Mom closely. Too closely. The email chain I obtained through discovery showed that Patricia knew I hadn't consented to the sale. There were messages where Mom explicitly said I was away and unreachable, but that she had the authority to proceed. Patricia had questioned this once, asking if I should be contacted, and Mom had shut it down, claiming I'd given verbal permission months ago. Any competent real estate agent would have insisted on getting my signature, or at least speaking to me directly before proceeding with a sale this significant. Patricia hadn't done that. She'd taken Mom's word for it because the commission on a $487,000 house was too good to pass up. I filed a complaint with the Oregon Real Estate Agency. I filed a civil suit against Patricia Goldman for negligence and failure to follow standard procedures. I filed a separate suit against my mother for fraud and conversion. And then I waited. Mom called me 30 times over the next week. I didn't answer. She showed up at Ryan's apartment, pounding on the door, demanding I drop the lawsuits. Ryan answered and told her to leave or he'd call the police. She screamed that I was tearing the family apart, that I was petty and vindictive, that she'd done nothing wrong. Bethany sent me a long, rambling text message calling me every name she could think of. According to her, I was ruining her fresh start, trying to destroy Mom's life, being selfish, cruel, and heartless. She said the family was better off without me. I blocked her number and kept pushing forward. The lawsuit against Patricia Goldman settled quickly. Her insurance company didn't want to go to trial. They paid out $85,000, and Patricia's license was suspended pending investigation. It wasn't enough to buy a new house, but it was something. The lawsuit against Mom was harder. She hired a lawyer and dug in, claiming she'd acted within her legal rights as a co-owner. But my lawyer was better. We subpoenaed her financial records and discovered she'd kept nearly $140,000 from the sale money she claimed had gone to expenses. During the discovery process, things got exponentially uglier. Mom's lawyer tried every delay tactic in the book, filing motion after motion to dismiss the case. Each court appearance meant taking time off work, which my boss Jennifer was understanding about. But I could see the strain it put on my team. I'd worked for 5 years building my reputation at the firm, and suddenly, I was the person with drama, the one who needed constant accommodations. Ryan came to every single hearing. He'd sit in the back of the courtroom in his work clothes, having rushed over during his lunch break or taken personal time. Afterward, he'd take me to this little diner on Hawthorne where the waitress knew us by name and never asked questions when I cried into my coffee. Your mom's lawyer is grasping at straws, Ryan said, after one particularly brutal hearing where mom's attorney had painted me as a greedy daughter trying to steal from her elderly mother. Never mind that your mom is 62 in perfect health and engineered a massive fraud. The judge sees through it, I asked, because from where I'm sitting, it looked like he was buying the whole confused elderly woman act. He's letting her lawyer speak, Ryan said. That's different from believing him. Trust the process. I wanted to trust the process, but every day that passed without resolution felt like another wound. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my mind spinning through worst-case scenarios. What if I lost? What if the judge decided Mom had acted within her rights? What if I'd spent tens of thousands on legal fees for nothing? Christopher started avoiding family gatherings entirely. He told me later that the extended family had split into camps. Aunt Rebecca, Mom's sister, was firmly on Mom's side, calling me vindictive and claiming I was persecuting a mother who'd only tried to help her struggling daughter. Uncle Paul, Dad's brother, thought Mom had gone too far, but didn't want to get involved. Cousin Amanda had stopped speaking to Bethany entirely after hearing the details. The worst part was running into people who knew the situation but only had Mom's version of events. I encountered an old neighbor at the grocery store who pulled me aside to say she was disappointed in me for attacking my own mother in court over money. When I tried to explain, she cut me off saying she'd heard all about it from Mom and didn't need to hear my excuses. I left my cart in the aisle and walked out. My therapist, Dr. Lauren Mitchell, helped me process the rage that threatened to consume me. Twice weekly sessions became my lifeline, the only place where I could safely express how betrayed and furious I felt without judgment. Your anger is justified, she told me during one session. Your mother violated your trust in one of the most fundamental ways possible. She stole from you. She planned it deliberately. She has no remorse. You're allowed to be angry. Everyone keeps telling me to let it go, I said. To forgive her because she's my mother. To remember that family is forever. Family is a relationship, not a get-out-of-jail-free card, Dr. Mitchell replied. Your mother's status as your parent doesn't give her the right to commit fraud against you. The fact that people are pressuring you to accept this betrayal says more about them than it does about you. Those words helped. So did the growing pile of evidence my lawyer kept uncovering. We found emails between Mom and Patricia Goldman, the real estate agent, discussing how to handle me. Patricia had apparently asked what would happen if I came back from vacation and refused to cooperate. Mom's response in writing was that I wouldn't be a problem because the sale would be finalized before I returned. That email alone proved knowledge and intent. Patricia couldn't claim ignorance when she'd literally discussed the fact that I was unaware of the sale. We also found bank records showing that Mom had withdrawn large sums of cash in the weeks following the sale. She claimed these were for personal expenses and refused to provide receipts or documentation. My lawyer argued that this was evidence she'd spent money on herself rather than on resolving Bethany's debts as she claimed. The most damning evidence came from Bethany herself. My lawyer deposed her, and under oath, she admitted that she and Mom had discussed selling my house as a backup plan months before my vacation. She admitted that Mom had told her I would be upset at first, but would get over it eventually. She admitted that they'd both thought I had more than enough money to replace what was taken. Reading that deposition transcript was surreal. Bethany spoke about destroying my life with the casual indifference someone might use when discussing changing their cable provider. She genuinely didn't seem to understand the magnitude of what had been done. When asked if she felt guilty, she said, I guess. But like Bonnie's doing fine now. She has a job and a boyfriend. She's not actually homeless, so I don't really see what the big deal is. My lawyer highlighted that quote in her motion for summary judgment. The breaking point came when we uncovered a phone recording. Oregon is a one-party consent state, which means you can record your own conversations without informing the other person. Bethany, in a moment of either stupidity or desperation, had recorded a conversation with Mom where they discussed the plan to sell my house. In the recording dated 2 weeks before my vacation, Mom's voice was clear. Once Bonnie is gone, we'll move quickly. The house will be sold before she gets back. She'll be angry, but what can she do? It'll be done. Bethany, honey, I'm doing this for you because I love you. Bonnie doesn't need that house. She needs to learn that family comes first. Bethany's response. What if she sues you? Mom's laugh. Let her try. I'm her mother. No jury is going to side with a daughter who drags her mother to court. Besides, by the time any lawsuit resolves, the money will be spent. You can't get blood from a stone. My lawyer played that recording in court during a hearing on my motion to compel full financial disclosure. I watched Mom's face drain of color as her own words echoed through the courtroom. Her lawyer requested a recess. 15 minutes later, he approached my attorney to discuss settlement terms. The recording changed everything. It proved premeditation. It proved Mom had anticipated legal action and planned around it. It proved she'd viewed my distress as an acceptable cost for helping Bethany. Most importantly, it proved she'd lied about the circumstances under which the house was sold. We also found evidence that she'd been planning this for months. Text messages between her and Bethany showed they discussed selling my house as early as 6 months before, back when Bethany's debts had first spiraled. Mom had researched property values, contacted real estate agents, and waited for an opportunity. My vacation had been that opportunity. In the text messages, Mom referred to me as difficult and too attached to material things. She told Bethany that I needed to learn to support family and that selling the house would teach me that lesson. She actually wrote that she was doing me a favor, forcing me to be less selfish. Reading those messages was somehow worse than losing the house. Seeing in writing that my mother had deliberately betrayed me, had planned it for months, had thought she was teaching me some kind of moral lesson by destroying my financial security. It was devastating. The case went to mediation. Mom's lawyer advised her to settle. The evidence was damning. A jury would sympathize with a daughter whose mother had stolen her house. The forged signature alone was potentially criminal fraud. Mom agreed to a settlement of $275,000, essentially all the money she'd kept from the sale, plus damages and my legal fees. Her lawyer warned her that refusing to settle would likely result in a larger judgment and possible criminal charges. The day we signed the settlement agreement, Mom looked at me across the conference table with pure hatred. "I hope you're happy," she said. "You've destroyed this family." "You destroyed it when you decided Beth's mistakes were more important than my life," I replied calmly. "She needed help. You would have let your sister die over money." "She wouldn't have died. She would have faced consequences for her choices. There's a difference." Mom stood up. "You're not my daughter anymore." "Good," I said, and I meant it. Bethany predictably went through the settlement money within 6 months. She'd received nothing directly, but Mom had been supporting her, paying her rent, and giving her spending money. Once the settlement took most of Mom's savings, that support dried up. Bethany spiraled again, racking up new debts, losing her apartment, bouncing between friends' couches. She called me 9 months after the settlement, crying, begging for help. The people she owed money to this time were really serious. She said she needed just $20,000 to make them go away. "I've changed," she promised. "I've learned my lesson. I'll pay you back." "No," I said simply. "Please, Bonnie. I'm your sister. Family is supposed to help each other." "You helped Mom steal my house," I said. "You laughed at me. You called me homeless. You said the family was better off without me. So consider this me agreeing with you." I hung up. She called back 17 times. I blocked her number. Christopher told me later that Bethany ended up in a rehab program after hitting rock bottom. Mom had to sell her house to pay for it, moving into a small apartment in a less desirable part of town. She blamed me for that too, telling anyone who would listen that I bankrupted her with my frivolous lawsuit. The aftermath of the settlement rippled through our extended family in ways I hadn't anticipated. Aunt Rebecca stopped speaking to me entirely, sending me a long email about how I'd destroyed a mother's golden years and should be ashamed of myself for valuing money over family. I didn't respond. Uncle Paul surprisingly reached out to apologize for not speaking up sooner, admitting he'd known Mom's favoritism toward Bethany was problematic, but had never wanted to cause family drama. "I regret that now," he told me over coffee 3 months after the settlement. "I should have said something years ago when I saw how differently she treated you girls. Maybe if someone had held her accountable earlier, it wouldn't have gotten this far." His apology meant more than he probably realized. It was validation that I wasn't crazy, that the dynamic I'd experienced my entire life had been real and visible to others. Work became my sanctuary during this period. I threw myself into projects with an intensity that worried my colleagues but kept me functional. Jennifer, my boss, pulled me aside one day and asked if I was okay. When I assured her I was fine, she gave me a look that said she didn't believe me but would respect my boundaries. "Just remember that you're allowed to not be okay," she said, "and if you need anything, you tell me." That kindness from a boss who owed me nothing meant everything. Ryan and I had tough conversations during this time about what it meant for our future. We'd been together for 3 years when everything happened, but this crisis tested our relationship in ways I hadn't expected. He saw me at my absolute worst, crying uncontrollably at 3 in the morning, rage cleaning the apartment at midnight, unable to eat for days at a time because my stomach was in knots. I need to know if this is too much, I told him one night. If dealing with my family drama is something you didn't sign up for, because I'll understand if it's not. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Bonnie, I'm not going anywhere. Your mom selling your house isn't your drama. It's something that was done to you. There's a difference. But all the legal stuff, the court dates, the constant stress, is temporary, he finished. Your mom will face consequences. The lawsuit will resolve. But you and I were not temporary. Stop trying to give me an out I don't want. I cried then, but they were good tears for once. The settlement negotiations had been brutal. Mom's lawyer kept trying to reduce the amount, arguing that Mom couldn't afford a large judgment. My lawyer countered with bank records showing Mom's spending patterns and the evidence of the money she'd kept. Finally, we agreed on $275,000, which represented most of what she'd taken from the sale, plus my legal fees and damages. Mom had to liquidate almost everything to pay it. Her house in Beaverton sold quickly. The market was still strong, but after paying off her mortgage and the settlement, she was left with enough to rent a small apartment and not much else. Her retirement savings took a massive hit. The comfortable life she'd built over decades was essentially dismantled. Christopher felt terrible about it, caught between his loyalty to me and his concern for Mom's well-being. She's going to struggle financially for the rest of her life, he told me. She'll probably have to work part-time just to make ends meet. She should have thought of that before she committed fraud, I said, and I meant it. I didn't take pleasure in Mom's financial hardship, but I also didn't feel guilty about it. She'd made choices that had consequences. Those consequences were hers to bear. Bethany's response to Mom's situation was predictable. She ranted on social media about how I destroyed our mother out of spite. She claimed I'd always been jealous of her relationship with Mom, that I'd manufactured the entire lawsuit as revenge for not being the favorite child. The posts were unhinged enough that several mutual friends reached out to ask if I was okay and if there was anything they could do. I appreciated their concern, but mostly, I just wanted to move forward. Every day spent thinking about Mom and Bethany was a day I wasn't building my new life. The day the settlement check cleared, I opened a bottle of champagne. Ryan and I toasted to justice, to new beginnings, to the fact that I could finally stop checking my bank account obsessively and worrying about legal fees. The money wouldn't undo what had been done, but it represented something important: accountability. Looking for a new house was both exciting and painful. Every property I toured reminded me of what I'd lost. My Laurelhurst house had been perfect: hardwood floors, built-in bookshelves, a kitchen with vintage tile that I'd lovingly restored. Finding something that felt like home again seemed impossible. Ryan came to every showing, taking notes on things I was too emotionally exhausted to remember. He asked questions I didn't think to ask. He held my hand when we walked through a bungalow in Selwood that made me cry, because the layout was so similar to my old house. "We don't have to decide today," he kept saying. "Take your time." But I was tired of taking time. I was tired of living in limbo. My belongings in storage, my life on hold while I dealt with legal proceedings and family drama. I wanted roots again. I wanted stability. The Selwood bungalow kept calling to me. It was smaller than my Laurelhurst house, only 2 bedrooms instead of 3, and the yard was basically non-existent, but it had character crown molding, original built-ins, a fireplace with beautiful tile work. The neighborhood was walkable, close to coffee shops and restaurants, and near the river path where Ryan and I liked to bike. "This one," I told the realtor. "I want this one." "Don't you want to think about it?" she asked, surprised at my decisiveness. "I've done enough thinking. Let's make an offer." We closed 6 weeks later. The day I got the keys, I sat on the floor of my empty living room and cried. These were different tears than the ones I'd shed over losing my first house. These were tears of relief, of finally having something that was truly mine, that no one could take away. I never bothered correcting the story. The people who mattered knew the truth. With the settlement money in my savings, I bought a new house 13 months after losing my first one. This one was smaller, a 2-bedroom bungalow in the Selwood neighborhood, but it was mine. Only my name was on the deed. I changed banks, got a new safety deposit box for important documents, and installed a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. Ryan moved in with me 6 months after I bought the place. He proposed on the back deck he'd help me refinish, and I said yes without hesitation. He'd stood by me through everything, never once suggesting I should just let it go or forgive and forget. He understood that some betrayals don't heal. Christopher came to the wedding. Mom and Bethany weren't invited. Christopher said Mom cried when she found out, claiming she'd raised me better than to cut out my own mother. Bethany posted on social media about fake family and people who abandon their blood. I didn't care. A year after the wedding, Bethany showed up at my door. She looked terrible, thin, and tired, her hair badly, dyed her clothes worn. She asked if we could talk. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on my couch and cried for 20 minutes before she could speak. When she finally did, the words came in a rush. She'd been through rehab twice. She'd been diagnosed with a gambling addiction and was in therapy. She'd gotten a job as a waitress and was living in a sober house. She was working on her 12 steps, and part of that was making amends. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice raw. "I'm sorry for everything. The gambling, the debts, letting Mom sell your house, laughing at you, all of it. I was sick and I was selfish and I destroyed your life because I was too weak to face my own problems." "You didn't destroy my life," I said quietly. "You destroyed my house and my relationship with Mom. My life is fine now, better than fine." "I don't expect you to forgive me," Bethany continued. "I know what I did is unforgivable. I just wanted you to know that I understand now how wrong I was, and I'm trying to be better." I looked at my sister, this person I'd grown up with, who I'd alternately loved and resented for 34 years. She looked sincere, but I'd seen her lie convincingly before. Addiction made people into excellent actors. "I appreciate you coming here," I said carefully. "I'm glad you're getting help, but I need you to understand something. What you and Mom did didn't just hurt me financially. It broke something fundamental. Trust, safety, family, all of it gone." "I know," Bethany whispered. "I don't want a relationship with you," I continued. "Maybe that makes me unforgiving or cold or whatever Mom says about me. But I can't have someone in my life who would do what you did. Even if you're better now, even if you're genuinely changed, I can't risk it." Bethany nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand." She left, and I never saw her again. Christopher updates me occasionally. Bethany is still sober, still working, still in therapy. Mom is bitter and isolated, having burned most of her bridges defending her decision to sell my house. She tells people I'm a successful financial analyst who cut her off over money, conveniently leaving out the part where she committed fraud. I don't correct those stories either. My life now is peaceful in a way it never was before. Ryan and I are talking about starting a family. My career is thriving. The house is slowly becoming a home built with furniture and memories that are genuinely ours. I have friends who understand boundaries, who wouldn't steal from me or enable destructive behavior. Sometimes I drive past my old house in Laurelhurst. The Morrisons planted a cherry tree in the front yard and painted the front door a cheerful yellow. It looks happy, well-loved. I'm glad they got the house. They deserved a dream home, and they got one. Honestly, people ask me sometimes if I regret pursuing the lawsuits, if it was worth destroying my relationship with my mother and sister over money and property. They say family is forever, that grudges only hurt the person holding them, that forgiveness is healing. I disagree. Some actions don't deserve forgiveness. Some relationships aren't worth maintaining. Some people will hurt you repeatedly if you give them the chance, and the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. My mother chose to betray me, to enable my sister's addiction. She planned it for months. She executed it while I was on vacation, specifically choosing a time when I couldn't interfere. She forged legal documents, lied to professionals, and stole hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of property and equity. Then she mocked me for being upset about it. That's not a mistake. That's not a momentary lapse in judgment. That's a deliberate, calculated betrayal. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. I don't miss my mother. I don't wonder if I made the right choice. I don't lie awake at night wishing things could be different. The version of my mother that I loved, the one I thought would protect me and value me, never actually existed. She was a fantasy I created to explain away years of favoritism and unequal treatment. The real version, the one who could sell my house to pay for my sister's gambling debts and feel righteous about it, isn't someone I need in my life. Bethany might be genuinely changed. She might stay sober and in therapy and become a better person. Good for her. But her redemption arc doesn't require my participation. I don't owe her forgiveness. I don't owe her another chance. I don't owe her anything. Christopher understands this. He's maintained relationships with both sides, but carefully navigating family events and keeping everyone's boundaries clear. He's never pressured me to reconcile or suggested I'm being too harsh. He just checks in periodically, making sure I'm okay, letting me know when there's something I should probably know. Last month, he told me Mom is moving to Arizona to live with her sister. She's selling what's left of her belongings and leaving Portland entirely. Part of me felt a pang at that news, some remnant of the daughter I used to be the one who loved her mother despite everything. But mostly I felt relief. The physical distance will make it easier to maintain the emotional distance. There won't be any chance of running into her at the grocery store or having awkward encounters at family events. She'll be someone who lives far away, someone from my past, someone who doesn't factor into my daily life. That's exactly what I want. Ryan and I are trying for a baby now. When I get pregnant, I'll have to decide what kind of grandmother access Mom gets, if any. Right now, I'm leaning toward none. I don't want my children to grow up thinking that kind of betrayal is normal or forgivable. I don't want them to learn that family can treat you any way they want, and you just have to accept it because blood is thicker than water. The full saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the bonds you choose are stronger than the bonds you're born with. I believe that now in a way I never did before. My family isn't Mom and Bethany anymore. It's Ryan Christopher, the friends who showed up when everything fell apart, the coworkers who covered my shifts when I was too devastated to function, the therapists who helped me process the betrayal and rebuild my sense of self. Those are my people. Those are the ones who earned their place in my life. And as for the rest, they can tell whatever stories they want about the daughter who cut them off over money. I know the truth. The people I care about know the truth. That's enough. I'm not homeless. I'm not lost. I'm not broken. I'm free.